The relations between the United States of America and Japan today are developing in a far more complex, multi-layered, and unexpected way than they might seem at first glance. And in this contradictory process, the key role is played by the new Prime Minister of Japan, Sanai Takaichi, a politician with a strongly pronounced pro-American platform, a person who throughout her entire career advocated strengthening the strategic alliance with Washington and openly confronting Beijing. Western media greeted her rise to power with enthusiasm. Publications like The Economist, Nikkei Asia, and Foreign Affairs wrote about her as a leader who would return Japan to the orbit of the United States of America and become a crucial element of the Asian coalition against China. However, as analysts from several major research centers, including the RAND Corporation and the Japanese Rebuild Japan Initiative Foundation, note, the first months of her rule showed the exact opposite effect. Sanai Takaichi, despite loud declarations of strong friendship with Washington, unexpectedly for many began gradually reassessing the very foundation of the Japanese-American alliance, approaching relations with the United States of America far more pragmatically and coldly than the White House expected of her. The turning point came after the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, announced the introduction of large-scale tariffs on Japanese industry. This step was explained in Washington as necessary for restoring fair trade and supporting the American automotive industry. But in Tokyo, it was perceived as a betrayal, as a blow not just to Japanese companies, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, but to the entire production chain of the country, which for decades had been built on access to the American market. Internal reports of the Japanese Ministry of Economy, obtained by journalists of Asahi Shimbun, described the imposed tariffs as an unprecedented blow to national competitiveness. And several officials who spoke with correspondents on condition of anonymity directly stated that Japan, for the first time in a long while, felt that the United States of America was not a guarantor of stability, but a source of strategic uncertainty. This became the starting point of the shift that all Asian experts are discussing today. Sanai Takaichi, known for her hard line against China and her traditionally loyal stance toward the United States of America, suddenly did what she was least expected to do. She began systematically reducing Japan's dependence on the American dollar. According to sources of Nikkei Asian Review in financial circles, the Takaichi government gave an unofficial signal to the country's largest corporations to expand settlements in national currencies, primarily in the yen, and to reduce the use of the American dollar in interbank and trade operations. In parallel, the Bank of Japan was instructed to prepare an analytical model assessing the risks and consequences of a partial exit from the dollar zone for strategic industries, from energy to microelectronics production. This work, according to two former employees of the central bank, turned into the largest de-dollarization study ever conducted in Japan. Why is this important? Because Japan is the third largest economy in the world, the largest international investor, and one of the main holders of American Treasury bonds. Any systemic reduction in dollar usage by such a country is a blow not only to the prestige of the United States of America as a global financial center, but also to the very foundation of American power, dollar hegemony. According to analysts of Bloomberg Economics, if Japan reduces the use of the American dollar in bilateral settlements by even 20 to 25%, this would become the largest change in the global financial architecture since the crisis of 2008. And Washington understands this perfectly. It is no coincidence that, according to the Financial Times, immediately after the first signals of possible changes in Japan's currency policy, a delegation of high-ranking American officials from the United States Department of the Treasury and the United States Department of State arrived in Tokyo to determine how serious Takaichi's new course truly was. However, according to FT sources in Japanese government circles, their conversation with the Prime Minister was cold and dry, polite, but without the usual demonstrative friendliness typical for the two countries. What is interesting is that Japan's decision to reduce its dependence on the dollar coincided with a global trend. China has been actively promoting yuan-based settlements for the past 2 years. The BRICS countries are discussing the creation of a common currency platform, and Saudi Arabia has openly declared plans to diversify oil trade outside the dollar. But when states traditionally perceived as opponents of the United States of America act in this way, Washington reacts firmly but calmly. Yet when America's key ally in Asia joins this trend, it becomes a blow to the very concept of American leadership. As experts of the Council on Foreign Relations note, the decline in trust between the United States of America and Japan became a direct consequence of the tariff war initiated by the Trump administration. Internal documents leaked from the White House transition team show that the introduction of duties against Japanese exports was considered as a way to push manufacturing back into the United States of America, and at the same time to show allies that America would no longer bear the main burden of maintaining their prosperity. But instead of strengthening the position of the United States of America, this strategy pushed Japan toward what was previously considered absolutely impossible: a revision of financial arrangements with Washington. According to a statement by one of the senior economists of the Japanese National Institute for Policy Studies, quoted by NHK World, Japan, for the first time in 50 years, has begun a structural move away from dollar dependence, and this trend may become irreversible, especially if the White House continues to adhere to protectionist policies. It is also interesting that within Japan, this shift is not perceived as an anti-American betrayal, but as a necessity dictated by harsh reality. After all, if the country's main ally suddenly becomes a source of economic shocks, it is logical to begin building a protection system in which the dollar is no longer the only foundation. American experts from the Brookings Institution write that what is happening between the United States of America and Japan is the most serious adjustment in relations in recent decades, comparable in scale to the revision of Japanese foreign policy after the collapse of the real estate bubble in the 1990s. And what is especially alarming for Washington is that Takaichi's decision coincided with the general global movement toward multi-valued currency use. When China and the BRICS reduced payments in dollars, it was perceived as a predictable challenge. But when Japan, one of the oldest and most reliable allies of the United States of America, does the same, it becomes a signal that the world is truly changing rapidly, and the power of the dollar no longer seems so unshakable. In their closed reports to Congress, excerpts of which were published by the Washington Post, analysts indicate that Takaichi's actions could lead to a sharp reduction of the dollar in global trade within the next 5 to 7 years. And even more dangerous is that this creates a political precedent. If Tokyo can afford to revise the financial foundation of its alliance with the US, then other partners of Washington, South Korea, Singapore, Australia, may do the same. And all of this is a direct consequence of Trump's tariff policy, which, paradoxically enough, undermines American power not from the outside, as the US's rivals tried to do, but from within, through a rupture with its key allies. This is why many analysts already call what is happening the foundation of a potential collapse of the financial dominance of America, the first brick of which may have been removed precisely by Japan's Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi.